the side over here. He shows where they entered and pried the door open. There's a hallway going back down this way. He circled around in this area after going through rooms, apparently, and he kicked this door in to the master bedroom. As the door kicked in, Sean Taylor was out of bed and moving towards him. With something in his hand. And that's when Eric Rivera said that he shot.
And so with regard to where Eric Rivera said that he was when he shot Sean Taylor, how at all did he indicate that on that sketch?
He's got an X right here where he kicked the door in, and this is where he said he was.
Okay. Were you also present when he was shown a photograph and asked whether he recognized that person as being one of the people that he had described going with him?
Yes.
To show you what has been moved in evidence as State Exhibit number 98. Ask if you recognize that.
Yes, this is Timmy Lee Brown. It's a picture of, photo driver license picture of him. It has Eric Rivera's name, date, and time on it, as well as mine, and Detective Segovia's name, date, and time.
Now, with regard to these names, dates, and times, although you're retired for 5 years, and we're talking about an event with regard to the Miranda form and the times on the sketch and all of these other things that occurred a long time ago, when they were dated and signed and the times were put on them, were they accurate at that time you signed them?
Yes, they were.
Were you also present when the defendant talked about shoes that he was wearing?
Yes.
Let me show you what's been marked in evidence as State Exhibit number 62. Does that have your signature?
Yes, it has my signature, date, and time, as well as Detective Segovia's and Eric Rivera's.
And what time was that?
2:17 p.m.
Did you stay in the room for the entire time after these items were signed and initialed and Mr. Rivera had begun to give information resulting in the sketch?
No, I exited the room and walked back and forth a few times, but I was not in the room constantly at that point.
So did you go and begin to focus your attention largely on someone else?
Yes.
Are you the person that brought the stenographer's typing machine in during the formal statement?
I do recall bringing the stenographer machine in there.
Did you actually stay for the statement?
No, I didn't.
During the time that you were in the room with the defendant, did he ever ask for a parent?
No.
Ask for a lawyer?
No.
Say he wanted to stop speaking?
No.
Did you or anyone threaten him or anyone else in any way?
Not at all.
Did you promise him anything or anyone promise him anything in exchange for him giving the statement that he gave?
No.
That's all the question.
Good afternoon, Detective.
Good counsel.
Now, you were a homicide detective for 17 years, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it fair to say you have more experience as a homicide detective?
I don't mean to come to all counsel. You finish that. I have a motion and I'd like to bring up sidebar. You can answer that question.
Is it fair to say you have more experience and you've handled more cases than Detective Segovia has?
Yes.
I apologize. May we go sidebar?
She will take time to do the motion.
It's not a motion, but actually go sidebar.
believe where we left off is you have more experience than Detective Segovia, correct?
I'd say so, yes.
And he was the lead detective on the case, correct?
Yes, he was.
But you were there assisting him in his duties involved specifically in this case.
Yes, I was.
And you interviewed a number of witnesses for him, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And as a homicide detective, you know the difference between just a regular witness interview and an interrogation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you stated that Mr. Rivera was read his Miranda rights before he was asking questions, correct?
Yes.
And isn't it true that Miranda is only required if a person is either in custody or they're a potential suspect in a case?
Yes.
So at that point, before he was even asked any questions, Mr. Rivera was a suspect, correct?
Sure he was.
Okay. But his parents were never called at the beginning, correct?
No, they were not.
And he was never supplied with an attorney to speak to, correct?
Nor did he ask for one.
Okay. And he was under the age of 18 at the time, correct?
I believe he was 17.
Now, want to ask a question. You stated that you asked Mr. Rivera, did he want to use the phone to call his parents, correct?
Yes.
If he had his phone, why would it be necessary for him to ask to use his own phone?
Because we wanted to see if he wanted to contact his parents.
Okay. Now, you stated that there was a landline telephone on the table in the room, correct?
Yes, there was.
Okay. Did anyone take a photograph of the room?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. And did you ever use the landline telephone?
I did not know.
Okay. So you don't know if the phone was actually operational?
No, I don't.
Okay. And do you know where Mr. Rivera's cell phone was at the time?
As I recall, it was close proximity to the landline phone.
Okay. And do you recall where the cell phone was when Mr. Rivera first entered the room?
I am not sure who carried the phone in the room, but I know it was put on the table next to the landline.
Okay. So you're not sure if the phone was carried into the room by Mr. Rivera or someone else?
Again, I'm not sure.
Is it possible that someone other than Mr. Rivera brought his phone into the room?
Objection, speculation.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Now, I noticed that you had a hard time remembering some of the details, correct?
It's been 7 years.
Yes. And you referred to Detective Segovia's report, correct?
Yes, as well as some notes that I wrote.
And you wrote notes based on Detective Segovia's report.
That's correct.
Isn't it fair to say that things are fresher in our minds the closer in time to when they occurred, correct?
Sure.
And we take notes or make recordings of things so we can remember them correctly.
Correct.
But the notes you're relying upon were not made by yourself, they were made by Detective Segovia.
The notes were made by myself. The report was made by Detective Segovia.
Okay. But your notes are based on Detective Segovia's report.
Correct.
They're not based on anything you yourself prepared close to the time when Mr. Rivera was questioned.
My report is mainly discussing giving information about the people I interviewed, as well as one of the other subjects that were brought in as well.
But you participated in the interview with Mr. Rivera, correct?
Correct.
But you did not make any notes in your personal report about this interview.
No.
And therefore you relied on Detective Segovia's notes, correct?
His report, yes.
Now, there was a briefing either the night before or the morning of everyone being brought to FDLE, correct?
The morning of, yes.
Okay. And it was already planned to try to get them to make statements, correct?
It was planned to interview them to see what they knew.
Okay. And an interview, maybe our terminology is different, but it was a plan for you to speak with them, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you would agree with me that FDLE is not what we consider a traditional police station?
Correct.
Okay. They didn't have any holding cells, correct?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. They didn't have what we would consider to be formal interview rooms, correct?
They had several rooms, but formal interview, it's a room.
Okay. And the room that Mr. Rivera was brought into was a conference room, correct?
Correct.
And there were other suspects that were in office spaces, correct?
Other areas of the FDLE office, yes.
Okay. And the layout and the different equipment you had at FDLE would not have been the same you had here in Miami-Dade office, correct?
Correct.
Now, as a trained homicide detective, you know that it's important to not give information to a suspect, correct?
You don't want to give information about the case that no one knows about, correct?
Okay. And it's important for you to know for sure that the information you're getting from a suspect is based on his or her personal knowledge, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you would take extra precaution to not supply specific details that were not released, correct?
Correct. You would give information that is already out and about the case, but not that was known only to us as investigators.
Okay. Now, do you recall if the fact that one of the suspects was wearing Nike shoes was released to the media?
I'm not aware.
Do you recall if the room that was used as the point of entry was previously released to the media?
I'm not aware.
Do you recall if the fact that the sliding glass door was shot had been released to the media?
I don't believe that was released to the media.
And do you recall if the fact that there was a 9mm firearm involved was released to the media?
I don't think that would have been released to the media.
Now, you were in and out of the room at certain points during the questioning, correct?
Right. Detective Segovia is the lead investigator.
Okay. And Detective Segovia was the main one asking the questions, correct?
Correct.
And he didn't have as much experience as you, correct?
Correct.
Now, during the times when you were in the room, did you ever hear Detective Segovia tell Mr. Rivera about how the house was entered? Bless you.
Not that I recall.
Is it possible that Detective Segovia told him that information?
I don't think so, but I don't recall.
Okay. Judge, may I have one?
Yes.
Opposing counsel and the witness?
May I ask you to-
Yes, Okay, and Judge, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
I'm showing you a transcript from a prior hearing as it relates to this case. Please take the time to review that and let me know if it refreshes your recollection.
Oh, it's technical stuff. So if you could review that and let me know when you've had a chance to
Is this my
review that. Yes,
testimony?
that is your testimony. Are you on, I believe it's pages 40 and 41. So that was.
You gave me
referring to.
41. Do I need to go back to 40?
If you could, please.
Okay.
Now, do you recall that Mr. Rivera may have been told that people were saying Mr. Rivera is the one who shot Mr. Taylor? Do you remember telling him that during his interview?
He may have been told that.
Okay. And do you recall that Mr. Rivera may have been told how the house was entered that day?
Again, I don't recall the entire interview, but he may have, I'm not sure.
And do you recall if Mr. Rivera may have been told about the bedroom door being kicked in?
I don't recall that.
If you could refer to page 41 again.
I see, we may have given him information. I don't know exactly what information we gave him.
Okay. So you're not sure what Mr. Rivera was told?
Right.
Now, at one point during the interview, you stated that Mr. Rivera was acting nervous and he was holding his head down. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it was shortly after that that Mr. Rivera nodded his head yes in response to your question, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall Mr. Rivera being told that his mom had to be taken to the hospital in an ambulance?
I don't recall that at all. No.
Do you recall Mr. Rivera being told that people from Sean Taylor's family may want to hurt his family, but Miami-Dade detectives could provide him protection if he cooperated?
That was never said.
Okay. And when you made your statement about Mr. Taylor being a hardworking person, he was in his home, do you recall if you asked him, was he involved or did he shoot him?
I said, why did you shoot that boy?
Okay, so you specifically said shoot, not just involved.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Rivera was first brought into the interview room at approximately 11:41, is that correct?
Correct.
And according to the Miranda form, which I may have free leave for a moment. The Miranda form was signed at 11:56, is that correct?
That's correct.
So it took approximately 15 minutes to read the Miranda form to Mr. Rivera and to get him to sign it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the form didn't take that long, but we first met him at the door at 11:41. Took some time to bring him in, introduce ourselves and things like that. It didn't take long to read this, no.
Okay. Now, before Mr. Rivera read the Miranda form and signed it, was he told he was being questioned for a homicide investigation?
I don't recall. It may have been just an investigation.
Do you recall if Mr. Rivera was told that he was being questioned about an armed burglary?
I don't believe so.
And believe when you read the Miranda form here today, it took about a minute. Is that fair?
I didn't read the entire form. I just said he initially yes blanks.
Okay. But to read Miranda, you've done it probably thousands of times in your career, correct?
Correct.
And it takes approximately 1 minute to read Miranda, correct?
It takes a little while. I take my time with it.
Okay. But do you recall what was being said to Mr. Rivera between the time of your introductions and when he read Miranda? I mean, when he signed the Miranda form? What was being done in the extra approximately 10 minutes?
It's nothing. It's basically just introducing ourselves and getting comfortable, sitting down, introducing ourselves, and then getting into the form.
Okay. So Mr. Rivera was not being told that he couldn't talk to his parents until he signed the form?
No, not at all.
And Judge, if I can have just one more. Now, Detective, Mr. Rivera was not under arrest when he first arrived, correct?
No, he was not.
But after he shook his head yes, he was under arrest at that point, correct?
The moment he shook his head yes, after did he shoot that boy, he was under arrest.
Okay. But his parents were not immediately called right after he shook his head, correct?
I believe I made the comment that his parents need to be notified right away, as soon as possible.
Okay, but did you personally go and call his parents?
No, I did not.
Okay. And was the interview stopped at that point to wait and let him speak with his parents first?
He still never asked to talk to his parents. We made the notification. Either myself or Detective Segovia went out and told one of our supervisors who was out in the other room that the parents needed to be notified.
Correct, but that was not my question. My question was the interview stopped at that point so he could speak with his parents?
No, but he never asked to talk to his parents.
Okay. Now, as a trained homicide detective, you know that it is perfectly legal for a detective to lie to a suspect during an interrogation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you also know that it's perfectly legal to record someone without them knowing they're being recorded?
Yes.
Nothing further, Judge.
Redirect.
All right. So, Detective, you could have lied to him if you wanted to.
Yes.
That would have been perfectly legal, right?
Correct.
But did you do that?
No.
It would have been not the most cautious way to approach it, but perfectly legal to ask a leading question, wouldn't it?
Yes.
It would have been perfectly legal to ask him about and discuss with him points of entry and things of that kind.